the smallest stack of snack I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Sorry to see that. It's not even, if I had a granola bar, I'd give it to you.
Are we ready up there?
Yes.
All right, we need to, excuse me, take a vote on our action that we did within our executive session. Do we go through each one, Marnie, and you will state, our action?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I can suggest language for a motion for each. The board has not yet taken action. We've just done straw polls on potential action.
Correct.
So now we will take actual action.
All right.
On agenda item 2A16, the recommendation is of the hearing officer as modified by the general counsel is to find that the allegation under section 9-10B for a late quarterly report was filed on justifiable grounds and should be referred to board staff for assessment of penalties. As to the alleged violations of section 9-11A8 and 9-11A16 regarding loans made by the complainants committee, those claims were filed on justifiable grounds and should be ordered to public hearing. And as to all other claims in the complaint, they were not filed on justifiable grounds and should be dismissed.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, Deb. Amy, roll call?
Ms. Ballard Croft,
Yes.
Ms. Cray,
Yes.
Ms. Genovese.
Yes.
Ms. McCory,
Yes.
Mr. Turbin.
Yes.
Mr. Brett,
Yes.
Vice Chair Donahue,
Yes.
Chair Watson.
Yeah.
All right.
Motion passes.
Motion is accepted.
Motion passed.
Continue, Marnie.
For agenda items 2A18 through 2A26, the recommendation of the hearing officer and the general counsel is to find that the claims were not filed on justifiable grounds and should be dismissed. As to the extent they are under the election code section 9-1.14, to the extent that violations of laws outside the election code are alleged, those should be dismissed for lack of jurisdiction.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Amy?
Ms. Ballard Croft,
Yes.
Ms. Cray.
Yes.
Ms. Genovese.
Yes.
Ms. McCory,
Yes.
Mr. Turbin,
Yes.
Mr. Brett,
Yes.
Vice Chair Donahue,
Yes.
Chair Watson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And finally, agenda item 2A27, the recommendation of the hearing officer as modified by the general counsel and further modified by the board is to find that a violation of section 9-9.5 of the election code was filed on justifiable grounds, that the no public hearing is necessary given the admission of missing language. However, the committee should be ordered to substantially comply with section 9-9.5 by adding attribution of source language to its existing signs within 3 business days of this order. And the committee should further be ordered to include attribution of source under section 9-9.5 on all future communications as required, and that failure to do either of these things will constitute violation of a board order that could result in separate assessments of up to $5,000, meaning $5,000 for failure to correct existing signs, plus a potential $5,000 for failure to correct future signs erected after today's date.
So moved.
Second.
It is, we have a motion and a second. Amy?
Ms. Ballard Croft,
Yes.
Ms. Cray,
Yes.
Ms. Genovese.
Yes.
Ms. McCory,
Yes.
Mr. Turbin,
Yes.
Mr. Brett,
Yes.
Vice Chair Donahue,
Yes.
Chair Watson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right.
And I have yet another item today for your consideration, so I
Go for
hope
it.
you like my voice. Agenda item 2B is consideration of proposed administrative rules. In your packets on pages 171 to 180, are draft Part 300 of the administrative rules on automatic voter registration, as well as Parts 310 and 311. So under Section 1A-16.2 of the Election Code, the board is required to enter into an interagency contract and jointly adopt rules with the following agencies for the purpose of automatic voter registration: the Division of Family and Community Services and Rehabilitation Services of the Department of Human Services, the Department of Employment Security, the Department of Financial and Professional Regulation, and the Department of Natural Resources. The purpose of automatic voter registration, which I'll call AVR, is to make registering to vote easier. And it does this by making any application filled out with an AVR agency into a dual purpose application that also functions as an application to register to vote. These rules would permit agencies to participate in AVR in one of three different ways, as described starting on page 175 of your packet. The first in would be opt-in AVR, where the applicant must expressly indicate a desire for their application with another agency to simultaneously operate as a voter registration application. The second option is opt-out AVR, in which an application is a dual-purpose application unless the applicant affirmatively declines. Or third, there's a website transfer version of AVR, in which a person making an application to an AVR agency can be transferred to a pre-filled out online voter registration application to finalize their voter registration. I'd like to note that opt-out AVR is not available to an agency unless it collects or cross-references reliable personal information indicating citizenship in the regular course of its application process. And this is to prevent any erroneous registration by non-citizens. So we've already drafted the required joint rules with the Department of Employment Security, and those appear in your packet. We envision passing similar rules with the other mandated agencies. The statute also permits other government agencies to participate as AVR agencies if they choose. So that's another option that can be pursued in the future. We hope to get these rules on file this month if possible, and to continue coordinating with other AVR agencies to make this program fully operational. I'm happy to handle any other questions, and Dustin Schultz from VRS is here for any technical or specific questions. And hopefully we will be ready to approve these rules for filing with JCAR.
Is there discussion? Rick? Excuse me.
Chris and I have met with Brian repeatedly on this, as well as staff from the office, and we wholeheartedly support what we see in these programs. So I wanted to tell you guys did a great job putting this all together, putting all the pieces together and answering all the multiple questions that Chris and I had during this process. So it's well needed, it needs to be done, and that's why we asked for it to be here today to get it through. So
Thank you.
Beth.
Thank you, Rick. Any comments from Chicago? Any further discussion? Do I have a motion? So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we,
Approve the rules for filing.
for filing, I was trying to get the file, that we approve the rules to file with Jacob. Amy, roll call, please.
Ms. Bella Croft,
Yes.
Ms. Craig.
Yeah.
Ms. Genovese.
Yes.
Ms. LaCory,
Yes.
Mr. Turbin,
Yes.
Mr. Brett,
Yes.
Vice Chair Donahue,
Yes,
Chair Watson,
Yes.
motion passes.
all right.
And that concludes my
Are
report for
you
this morning.
concluding, Marty? All right.
So long.
Jeremy, you are our executive director today. So if you'd like to proceed with your report.
I will. Good afternoon. Unlike Marnie, I believe our executive director report is gonna be fairly short today. The first item on the agenda is item 3A, which includes updates surrounding 2025 consolidated election. So as a brief reminder, the consolidated election will be held on Tuesday, April 1st. Staff will be available on election day from opening to closing of polls to provide election authorities any necessary assistance and to handle inquiries from the public. And then we do have Brent Davis, Director of Elections Operations, is here to provide an oral update related to the consolidated primary that occurred on February 25th.
Brian? You give them mic.
Brent Davis for the record.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Vice Chair Donahue and members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. My favorite post-election report is one that doesn't have anything in it, and that's essentially what we have here for the consolidated primary. So in the consolidated primary, we had 19 jurisdictions, which is roughly 18% of the 108 jurisdictions in the state. So off the bat, we didn't have very many jurisdictions that had anything at all. Of those 18 jurisdictions, the number of precincts that actually had an election was even lower than that. So roughly, 894 precincts across the state, which is less than 10% of the total precincts in the state. And even among those, many of them only had one political party. So the actual number of voters affected was very, very small. The turnout ranged from 1.69% to 21% across the state. So we had most of them falling somewhere in the middle of that range. And but as far as the actual election day activity, it was extremely quiet, and we had support in place from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and received virtually no calls at all. So it was a great election day as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, so I think that's really all the questions I've received were after the election, kind of concerning the transition between the primary to the actual consolidated election, because it's a very very compressed schedule for that transition. So other than that, I really don't have much to report, but I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Do you anticipate any for any issues or anything that you have with the?
For April? So not really. It will be a busier day, and we will have a bigger staff presence that day. So we will be open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. With full staffing during that time frame. And 107 of the 108 jurisdictions will have an election. So inevitably, we're going to have more traffic, but it's still typically a low turnout election. And so it's usually just the standard run-of-the-mill type inquiries that we get, people looking for polling places, people just asking very general questions. So other than that, I really don't have any major concerns about it.
Well, you handled them well. So we thank you for all you do in your staff. Is there any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you, Brent. Appreciate you and your staff's efforts over the consolidated election cycle. Next item on the agenda is item 3A2, which is on page 181. It's a largely informational memo from Erica Christel, our voting systems and testing team lead. Based on past precedents from the board, staff survey election jurisdictions regarding the timeliness of their reporting of unofficial election results on election night and inquire about any issues they may have encountered. The report is commonly referred to as the post 2 a.m. report. I'm happy to share that all 19 jurisdictions that conducted consolidated elections on February 25th reported their election results by 2 a.m. without any noted issues.
That's great.
Agenda item 3A3 is also largely informational. Brent Davis provided a memo that outlined the schedule of election judge trainings that occurred prior to the consolidated primary. 9 of the 19 jurisdictions scheduled election judge trainings with the State Board of Elections. And then The last real material item on the list is agenda item 3B, which is a legislative update provided by Senior Policy Advisor Brian Pryor. In addition to what is not provided in your packets, appropriation hearings have been scheduled. The Senate appropriation hearing is scheduled for Tuesday, April 15th at 10 a.m. And the House appropriation hearing is scheduled for Wednesday, March 30th at 4 p.m.
Give those dates again.
The Senate will be on April 15th. And the House is March 30th. So Brian's thunder, but he can speak to the committee piece. But Brian is here to answer any questions that you may have over the materials or any other legislative questions.
Did you get the pickup on the, I think there were two things today that we talked.
Yeah,
about.
I was gonna let him know about John Fogarty when
Okay.
we were done, because he was out of the room. That was
That's
the
right.
executive place. and he was out.
Certainly. So thank you. You saw largely the report on bills that you typically see. First, I want to start off by saying thank you for the swift adoption of the AVR rules, but I can't take any of that credit. Jordan Andrew was largely the drafter and the individual that prepared those. So thank you, Jordan, gracefully. Again, the information on bills is simply just a report on bills. I wanted to acknowledge that my name was used in conversation a few times today as it related to legislative matters that we need to look into. Happy to do so. I've already talked to Tom. He caught me off in the side of the room when we talked about the issue that was brought up during closed session. So happy to also discuss that. Our 4 legislative matters were heard in the House Ethics and Election Committee 2 weeks ago. That largely went fine, and it's just an indication that things are progressing as they should. So happy to answer any questions.
Questions in Chicago? Thank you, Brian. Appreciate
Thank you.
your work.
Brian.
Jeremy?
Yes, the remaining agenda items, which are 3C through F, are informational. However, if any board member has any questions, happy to entertain those. Otherwise, that concludes the executive director report.
I
Do you have
just,
any questions?
I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah.
Jeremy double checked with me this morning, but something that I asked for at the last board meeting, they supplied me. It was very helpful. So I just want to say thank you.
And thank you, Elena, for that.
Anything else? All right, is there any other business to come before the board? Do we have comments from the general public? Anything in Chicago?
No.
All right. Now we are going to go back into executive session for the purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, compensation, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, the minutes of the February 19th executive session meeting, and pending litigation pursuant to sections 2C1, 2C11, and 2C21 of the Open Meetings Act, 5 ILCS 120. So if you will clear the rooms out
We need
there.
a motion.
Oh,
We need a
we need
motion.
a motion to go into executive
Wait,
session.
oh,
correct?
Wait.
We need 5
Wow.
members.
I'm right here. I'm staying in the room. I just.
All right,
Move.
second,
Thank you.
roll call, Amy.
Ms. Bellicroft,
Yes.
Ms. Craig,
Yes.
Ms. Genovese,
Yes.
Ms. McCory,
Yes.
Ms. Turbin,
Yes.
Mr. Brett,
Yes.
Vice Chair Donahue,
Yes.
Chair Watson.
Yes.
Motion passes. And I'm going to mute